Welcome to English with Matthew, the only podcast that teaches you American English in a fun, easy, and comprehensible way. My name is Matthew, and without further ado, let's go to the episode. Hello, welcome to Easy English with Matthew. Today we're going to be learning and reviewing the topics from A1.1 level. My name is Matthew, and I'm your host for today. In this episode, we will practice how to greet people and introduce ourselves in different situations. Greeting people is one of the first things you need to learn when you start learning a new language. It's important to use the appropriate greetings depending on the time of day, the context, and the relationship with the person you're talking to. For example, if you meet someone for the first time in the morning, you can say, "Good morning. I'm John. Nice to meet you." If you meet someone in the afternoon, you can say, "Good afternoon. I'm John. Pleased to meet you." And if you meet someone in the evening, you can say, "Good evening. I'm John. It's a pleasure to meet you." Notice that we use different expressions to show politeness and respect when we introduce ourselves. You can also use other words like delighted or happy instead of nice, pleased, or pleasure. They all mean the same thing. Another thing to pay attention to is the pronunciation of I'm. It's a contraction of I am, and it sounds like I'm. Don't say am or I'm. Practice with me. I'm John. I'm Matthew. I'm, then you will say your name. Now, let's see how we can ask and answer how someone is doing. This is a common way to start a conversation or to show interest in someone's well being. There are different ways to ask this question, but the most common one is, "How are you?" You can also say, "How are you doing?" "How do you do?" They all mean the same thing. When someone asks you how you are, you can answer with a simple word like fine, good, or okay. You can also add thank you and you to be polite and return the question. For example, you can say, "I'm fine, thank you, and you," or "I'm fine, thanks. How are you?" Notice that we use a rising intonation at the end of the questions to show that we expect an answer. Practice saying it with me. How are you? How are you? How are you? How are you? And this concludes the first block. In the next block, we will learn about some questions you can ask people when you are ready to make new friends. Hi, and welcome to the second block of our show today. And in this part, we're going to talk about making friends. How do you make friends in English? What are some common expressions and questions that you can use to start a conversation with someone new? Let's find out together. First of all, let's review how to greet people according to the time of the day. You probably already know some of these greetings, but it's always good to practice them. When you meet someone for the first time in the morning, you can say good morning or hello. If it's in the afternoon, you can say good afternoon or hi. And if it's in the evening, you can say good evening or hey. These are all polite and friendly ways to say hello to someone. Next, let's learn how to ask and understand how someone is doing by using very simple phrases. This is a common way to show interest and care for the other person. You can ask, how are you? Or how are you doing? How's it going? These are all equivalent ways to ask the same thing. The other person can answer with I'm fine, thank you, or I'm good, thanks, or I'm doing well, how about you? These are all positive and polite ways to respond. You can also use other words like great, wonderful, fantastic, etc. to express more enthusiasm. Or you can use words like okay, not bad, so so, etc. to express less satisfaction. If you want to be even more honest and share your feelings, you can say things like I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm happy, etc. But be careful not to share too much personal information with someone you don't know well. In the next block, we're going to learn about personal pronouns in English. Stay tuned. Hello, and welcome to the third block of this episode. We're going to talk about personal pronouns. Personal pronouns are words that we use to refer to ourselves or other people, such as I, you, he, she, they, etc. It. They are very important in English because they help us to avoid repeating the same names over and over again. For example, instead of saying, Mary likes Mary's dog, we can say, she likes her dog. Do you see how much easier and clearer this is? Let's start with the subject pronouns. Subject pronouns are the ones that we use as the subject of a sentence. That is, the person or thing that does the action. For example, in the sentence, he runs fast. He is the subject. There are 7 subject pronouns in English: I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. Let's look at each one of them and how to use them. I is the pronoun that we use to talk about ourselves. For example, I am a teacher. I like pizza. I live in London. We always write I with a capital letter, even in the middle of a sentence. You is the pronoun that we use to talk about other people or another person. For example, you are a student. You have a nice car. You speak English very well. You can be singular or plural depending on how many people you are talking to or about. He is the pronoun we use to talk about a male person or animal. For example, he is my brother. He works as a doctor. He is a lion. We usually use he when we want to know about the name or identity of the person or animal. She is the pronoun that we use to talk about a female person or animal. For example, she is my sister. She studies at university. She is a cat. We usually use she when we want to know the name or identity of the person or animal. It is the pronoun that we use to talk about a thing, an object, or an animal whose gender we don't know or don't care about, for example. It is a book. It is raining. It is a bird. We usually use it when we don't know the name or identity of the thing or animal. We use the pronoun we as well. We is the pronoun that we use to talk about ourselves and other people together. For example, we are friends. We like music. We live in the same house. We can be two or more people. They is another pronoun which we use when we talk about other people or things that are not here or not involved in the conversation. For example, they are my parents. They have a dog. They are books. They can be two or more people or things. I hope you learned a lot about personal pronouns. Just a review. English has 7 personal pronouns: I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. For example, I am a teacher. You don't speak English very well yet, but your sister speaks English, so maybe after you finish listening to this conversation on this podcast, she can help you. Paying attention to these personal pronouns is important and helps clarify the subject of the person whom you are talking with. That's all for today, folks. In this episode, we have learned the personal pronouns, how to greet and introduce ourselves, and we have also learned about how to make friends in English. I hope you enjoyed this episode and I hope it was helpful to you. If you have any questions, I included my link to my email in the description box below. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, please leave me a message. Thank you. Until the next episode. Thank you for clicking on this podcast, and I hope that you learned a lot today in your first day of English. This podcast, of course, will only be conducted in English. If you have any suggestions or ideas for future episodes, please see the transcription of the podcast below, where I have left my email address. And thank you again for listening to this podcast. Until next time.